everyone. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for bearing with us this morning. At 9:58, we went to go live to Facebook, and it said, yeah, we've got technical problems this morning. So I think Zoom was pretty overloaded today. So again, thanks for being with us. We really appreciate you hanging in there. And we have a guest that you're really going to enjoy today. Somebody who's very familiar to the Century 21 family. Chris Leader is here with us. He's been with us since 1981. He started as a sales rep with Century 21 Canada. He ran an office, which is now BJ Roth, or he owned it. And then he transitioned to speaking and training about 20 years ago and is renowned in the industry for the advice he is able to give people, because he has been at every stage of the real estate career. He's been a sales rep, he's been a manager, he's been an owner, and now he speaks across the US and Canada. Chris, hello to you. Right, everyone. Thank you for being patient with us. We continue to struggle a little bit with technology this morning. It started from the very beginning when it said that we couldn't broadcast on Facebook from Zoom. So we found a little bit of a workaround. If there's a little bit of background noise, we think we found the problem, and we're going to do our very best to make it as the audio quality as good as we can for you. So please just bear with us, and thank you, Chris Leader, for bearing with us. I think you understand you've been dealing with all of these technology issues. This is the first time in the week that we've been doing these that we've had this issue. And I think with so many people working from home that it was bound to happen at some point. So Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Please take, probably not where we left off if we want to start from the very beginning, but some of the things you said, this is not about me, it's about you. Can you explain what you mean by that?
I think that one of the key components is staying connected to our clients during this challenging time. So being able to reach out, reinforce, make that connection. And it's not about selling stuff right now, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but it's about what we can do to maintain our connection. And basically, I think the best strategy right now is planting seeds for when we can get back to work. And that's going to happen by that connectivity. But just to kind of go backwards a little bit to come forwards, I think we're all in a shelter-in-place situation. We've been at this for now probably over a week. The first week, it was kind of novel and it was kind of interesting, and we were at home, different workspace, and it felt like a little bit of a forced vacation. And there's problems with that because we get off of our schedules, we break our routines, and we end up burning daylight and wasting the time. So there's really three things I wanted to talk to you guys about today, and it will convert into how you deal with your clients through this challenging time. I wanted to talk to you about your physical and mental health while we're sequestered. I want to talk to you about the best way to use the time that we have so that you are really familiarizing yourself with all the tools, strategies, and all of the great products, for instance, that Century 21 has. And then finally, I want to talk to you about your financial health and why that's so important going through this period of time. As I said, it felt like a little bit of a holiday when we started off. We're all at home. One of the challenges we can find with that, like I said, is our routines get broken, our schedule of activities gets broken, and we slide into some bad habits. So I want to talk about, just making sure we're doing really good, positive stuff and how we handle this situation. It looks like it's going to be 4 weeks. It might be 6, it might be 8. One of the difficulties about this particular problem, I'm going to call it a problem or a challenge, is it's constantly a moving target. If we go into a recession and inventory levels rise, as a salesperson, you can tactically change your talk tracks going into opportunities. You can deal with pricing strategies to make sure the inventory you bring on is going to be one of the properties that sell. But this one here, it's really hard to negotiate with a virus. It's very hard to navigate the situation that's in front of us. So, and this isn't the first time. I mean, this may be the first virus situation that we've seen in how it affects the real estate market, but it's certainly not the first downturn, if that's what this is. I'm not even sure yet. Downturn that we've seen. And all of the downturns, if you want to call them recessions, are caused by different things. 1990, it was the oil crisis. In 2000, it was the dot-com bubble. In 2008, it was the mortgage debacle. And in 2020, it'll be the virus, might be the thing that impacts our business. But the strategy you use to work your way through those situations is the same, even though it's caused by a different situation. So I wanted to talk about staying physically and mentally in a healthy spot, and what are some of the things we can do during that during this period of time, staying productive and managing your finances. So when we're talking about our physical health, I think that the first thing I would recommend is that you get all of your information from someplace like the CDC, and we don't go down any conspiracy rabbit holes on the internet on things that are going to make us well or get us through the virus. So let's look to the government and the CDC for our information. Now, in terms of exercise, some of you are gym rats, some of you belong to running clubs, some of you are out at the gym working, doing yoga classes, all of that. And it's really hard on us physically, but that also affects us emotionally. And if we're not in a healthy spot emotionally, then it's really hard to connect with people and really serve the clients that we're fortunate enough to work with. So my first suggestion to you would be go for a walk every day. Yes, we're not supposed to be out with people. We're supposed to, be practicing social distancing and all of that, but there's nothing wrong with going for a 30-minute walk in the morning. And I think it's a good idea to get some fresh air, and every physician out there would tell you exercise is important. If you're in an urban setting and you don't feel that that space is available to you, there's other things we can do, like online yoga classes or online exercise classes. I think everybody's capable of getting up and doing some push-ups, sit-ups, some crunches, and some planks inside the house, just to stay physically active, because how we feel affects the way we think. The other thing I'm going to suggest to you is, now that we're all sequestered at home and shelter in place order, we've got all of our food and supplies in, it's easy to fall into a lot of comfort food right now. A big bowl of pasta, some Haagen-Dazs after dinner. It feels like we're on a little bit of a stay day right now, and we're all at home. But when this is all over, I don't want to see us all kind of come out of the house 20 pounds heavier than we went in. So, I think you got to be thoughtful about your consumption right now and what we're doing, because it really does, in a lot of ways, feel like a bit of a stay vacation. We're all at home. I think that your routine is really important, and adding some sort of normal schedule to stuff. I'd recommend that you continue to get up early. Don't fall into the bad habit of going to bed late and getting up late. Maintain that routine. I'd get up early. I would hydrate. I would go through a series of stretching exercises. Depending on where you are in terms of your spiritual belief, either meditate or pray for 15 or 20 minutes every morning, just to bring a sense of clarity and thought to what you're doing. Get out for that walk, like I said, get back and have a breakfast, and then block some work hours. And I want to talk to you in a few minutes about what can you actually be doing when you can't be out holding open houses. Something we used to use, a completely different, going back decades ago in the sales world, and it was really popular 30 years ago, but we were all taught to use positive affirmations every day. First person, present tense, positive thoughts, verbalize them out loud and go through that exercise of doing that. I think that would add to helping you maintain a positive mental position. I think it's important that we stay connected with agents at the office and using video conferencing like we're doing right now. So maybe we could create a mastermind group where agents could get together and strategize, or you could even practice your listing presentations from a distance perspective using something like Zoom, where you do your digital listing presentation to an agent in another location, and you guys could work through some of the bumps of using technology and delivering that presentation. So there's lots of things we can do in regards to that. I know that we as a species are very social. We go out to people watch sometimes, or we will go out for dinner just because we need a change of venue and a change of energy in our atmosphere. And it's hard to get that when we're all sequestered and we're all in our houses like we are right now. So maybe we could take video conferencing. One of the things I've been doing is happy hour at the end of my day with offices. So we've been getting together at a video conference and sharing a glass of wine. And a whole bunch of us have been talking about stuff. So instead of coffee with Chris on Monday morning, maybe it's cocktails with Chris on Friday. But either way, I think there's a way for us to make that connection with each other. I was working with a broker in Toronto, or not working, I was talking to a broker in Toronto last night, and we were video conferencing. And it felt more personal than a phone call when you're actually looking at somebody. So do that with your friends and do that with your colleagues. Another thing I think is really important for our mental health right now, because there's, you know, the whole thing of dealing with the uncertainty of the situation is enough to keep anybody up. I think it's important to stay informed, but not fixated. To me, right now, this whole virus thing feels very similar to 9/11. The hurricane that blew through New Orleans, Katrina. And when that stuff was on, I was tied to either Fox or CNN. I mean, like 24 hours, I'm watching the news. I'm so connected to what's happening. But knowing that and knowing those past experiences, what I would tell you is today what I do is I get up, I spend 30 minutes going through the newspaper. I get my news on my phone every morning, and I go through the National Post and the New York Times. I want to be informed, but then I want to get on with the rest of my day. And I don't look at the news for the rest of the day until the day's over. So my suggestion is a few minutes in the morning so you're informed, a few minutes when the day is finished. But otherwise, you get sucked into that negative vortex, and because if it bleeds, it leads. And if they can sensationalize it, they will. And of course, they'll make it sound a lot worse than it actually is. Keep informed, absolutely, but don't get sucked into that negative space. I would also avoid mindless binging on Netflix. Right now, we've got a whole bunch of ding-dongs, and we got some wine at home and some cheese and crackers, and you got your Netflix going, and next thing you know, you've spent 6 hours watching Netflix. This is not going to be productive, and it's not going to contribute to your real estate career. So if you need it, you need a brain break, and you want to get away to a mindless exercise, let me give you a couple of really good suggestions on things you could watch on television that would have a positive effect on you. Why not spend a whole bunch of time binging on TED Talks? Why not binge on education instead of mindless television? You know, you're not going to get a whole lot of value watching reruns of Big Bang, but watching somebody on TED Talks that's inspirational would make a big difference. Here's another platform that you've seen it, but you're not sure what it is yet. They've just started marketing to us. And if you like TED Talks, then you want to check out Masterclass. If you've been online right now, Masterclass ads have been following you around. If you're on television, Masterclass ads are on television. What is Masterclass? It is the very best in every industry that they are interviewing them. So the very best actors, the very best athletes, the very best singers and musicians and business people. So they're interviewing them to find out what is the common theme amongst them that causes that sense of excellence. So I would suggest, instead of binging on Netflix, let's do TED Talks or Masterclass. Find out what a subscription to Masterclass looks like, but wouldn't it be wonderful to find out what makes other people really great at what they do? The other thing I'm going to suggest to you is that I would recommend you do a little journaling every day. Take a few minutes, and even if your journal is digital, take a few minutes and journal about what you're really grateful for and who's really important in your life and how blessed you are to have them. In these challenging times and difficult environment, we often lose sight of what's really important. And what's important is your friends and family, making sure that they're in a good space and staying connected. So take a few minutes, journal every morning about what you're grateful for. And I think it reminds us how blessed we are. So the next thing, that was sort of my emotional space, you know, just making sure we're doing good stuff emotionally and doing some stuff physically. And staying on schedule with stuff and having some sort of routine in our life, and we don't fall into just being a big couch potato. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about was staying productive and using our time wisely. My first suggestion is not to turtle. A lot of agents, or a lot of people, let's take agents out of the sentence, but a lot of people, when they're faced with a difficult situation, they think the best solution is to stick their head in the sand until it all goes away. Well, the reality of it is that it's not going to go away, and avoiding situations actually makes them worse. When you avoid a small problem, it turns into a big problem, and now you've got a real monster on your hands that you have to deal with. So I'm going to suggest to you that that you time block some time to reach out and connect with people, and you might want to call it a very elegant way of doing some prospecting. And when I say to agents, even right now, how am I going to prospect? It's not like I can knock on people's doors. Many people think they can't, but there are some things you can do. It's things that I would normally categorize as passive, but they would contribute to your success going forward when people are ready to get back to a regular routine. So let me give you 5 things you should do every morning from a business perspective before 8 a.m. And I'd love it if you got into the habit, even when the virus had passed and you were back on the road again, doing everything we were always doing, that you continued to participate in these 5 activities. My first suggestion is every morning, go to your database, go to your CRM system, and take 5 people and send them a personal email. 5 emails to 5 people from your database. Then what I want you to do is send 5 text messages to 5 different people out of your database. So we got 5 emails and 5 texts going out. 5 handwritten notes. Take out a handwritten note and write a little note to somebody, put a stamp on it, send it snail mail, give you a good excuse to walk down to the post box and get out of the house for a couple of minutes. Then 5 social media posts, either posts or comments, so that you've showed up on the social media, on different social media platforms. So it's either your comments or it's commenting on somebody else's. And then finally, my last one for you would be 5 slide dials. Now, if you're not familiar with the technology called slide dial, what it does is it allows me to call somebody without ringing their phone. Automatically, it puts me right into their voicemail box. And they won't even realize that I've called, but the next time they check their voice messages, they're gonna be like, I didn't even get that phone call and there's a message from Chris. So really what I'm looking for is to send out a nice message, not interrupt somebody's day. If you went through that activity every morning, that would be 25 people that you reached out and touched using one technology or one form or another. That's 125 a week. That's works out to 500 a month, or 6,000 people a year that you've reached out and touched. Even if you were only to close 2.5% of those people, so they came back to you to write business, we'd be looking at 15 transactions a year from doing nothing more than going through those 25 contact points or touch points on a daily basis with 25 different people. So it's still prospecting, it's polite, it's not interrupting anybody's day, and it's reminding people that you're in real estate. So there's an activity that you could do that I think could uncover some opportunities. And don't be surprised if somebody still wants to buy a house right now. You know, you look at some of the marketplaces like Toronto or Vancouver, those markets are undersupplied. And I know that there's, even as of yesterday, I was talking to brokers yesterday in the Toronto market, for instance, and they're still writing deals. They've got special virus clauses built into those offers now, and people are finding really constructive and interesting ways to navigate around the challenges that are in front of them. My next suggestion to you is that a CRM system is the backbone of every successful sales desk. This is an excellent time for you to go in and clean up your CRM system. Your system's probably a mess, and there's fields that are missing that haven't been populated. So I really recommend, from a business perspective, get on your CRM, let's clean that up. But this would also give you an excuse to reach out to people on your CRM that you're missing contact information. So you're not calling and saying, hey, you want to sell your house, you're calling to say, hey, I haven't talked to you for a while. How are you making out with this whole virus thing? How are you guys, how are you guys sheltering? You're making it through, blah, 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 nice little chit chat. Oh, by the way, let me tell you why I called. I wanted to update some information on my system about you, and I'm missing some information. And you know that half the time, as a real estate professional and a friend or an acquaintance or a past client, those conversations often turn to, how are you guys doing? How's the real estate business? And who knows what that leads to. So I'm going to say that updating your CRM system, I would make sure everyone in your system is in some sort of campaign, so that you have a digital campaign organized in some sort of funnels, that you've got stuff going out all the time to people. Market updates, maybe your newsletter, anniversaries, birthdays, that sort of thing. But let's make sure our CRM system is functioning the way you want it to. We all get busy with the clients we have. We're running from deal to deal. We're working on listings. And often there's a whole bunch of things from a technology perspective that we really want to get to, but we just never have time to. Now you have the time if we use it wisely. So I would assign people to different groups. I would time block an hour, setting your CRM system aside. I would time block an hour every day to clean up your technology. Let's take a look at your notebook computer. Let's delete files that we no longer use and we no longer have any need for. I know that many of you are still not storing your data on the cloud, so let's look to moving to Google Storage or OneDrive. But let's get our stuff off of our notebook computer, just in case we have a hardware issue going forward. Plus, it'll free up space, and your notebook computer is going to run more effectively when we take a lot of the weight off of it. So let's go to cloud storage. If you're not familiar with how, well, that sounds great, but how do I get my files from here and store them on the cloud? Here, let me give you another little tip that people always forget. Whatever you don't know how to do, Google it. Google everything. And what's neat about this is if you're anything like me, I'm very impatient. I can't go through the exercise of having to read directions. I'm the kind of guy that opens the box, puts the directions aside, takes out the screwdriver and tries to put the IKEA furniture together without any directions. You know how that works. You always end up with pieces and screws at the end that you were supposed to go somewhere. The reason I'm telling you this is I'm very impatient. And if you're anything like me, you might very well be as well. Take a breath, take a pause, because right now you can afford the time to teach yourself how to use a lot of the nuances of any of the technologies. When you look at your emails, I'll bet that your subfolders down the left-hand side, your system is populated with subfolders that are empty or you're no longer using. Let's clean all that stuff up. Let's get everything out of our inbox and put it into the subfolders or delete it so our inbox is finally clean. That would be amazing. And then let's make sure our hardware is synchronized. I often in my classes have salespeople that will show me their phone and it'll say they have 9,000 unopened emails. That's because they're deleting their emails on their notebook, but their notebook and their smartphone are not communicating with each other. So again, if you don't know how to get your hardware synchronized, let's Google it, let's figure it out. But if you delete it on your notebook, it shouldn't show up in your smartphone file folders anymore. So we've got lots of time to do this stuff. Let's put some time on our calendar right now in terms of education every day. You know, when you're looking to find clients and you've got that nagging feeling, you've got to go out and get some new clients, you got to prospect for more sellers or buyers. But right now we're kind of in a holding pattern. So again, you can afford yourself the luxury to kind of get lost in your computer and your technology and learn about a lot of the stuff that we never seem to have time. I mean, I bet you there's things you'd like to do with Facebook, but you never figured out how to do it. Or I'll bet you there's things like Zoom, for instance, that you would like to know more about, or Skype, or you'd like to know more about how to use WebEx or GoToMeeting. Now you have your time, you have the time. You can actually afford yourself the luxury of looking around at this stuff. In terms of connecting with your clients, some of your clients will do good on FaceTime, somebody else will use Zoom, somebody is familiar with WebEx. So for you to understand the nuances of these systems and be able to communicate on any platform with your clients would only create greater efficiencies after this time has passed. I'd recommend that you spend some time and take a look at the Leaders Edge virtual training system. Again, it's all done digitally, it's online, and a lot of your brokers have the system, so you should tap into that and find out about distance learning and going through that video training program. I would also suggest to you that it would be an important exercise for you to understand your local market stats really, really thoroughly right now. I find a lot of times when I ask an agent, what's the average days on the market, the list to sell ratio, or the number of days of inventory presently on the market, they kind of look at me like deer in the light of an automobile, like I'm speaking a different language. I need you guys to know this stuff. This is a great time for you to go into your MLS system, really research sort of pre-virus data. Let's take a look at what's happening during the virus so that you have some sense of conversation with potential clients. And then, of course, we're going to measure stuff post-virus to see where we're at. But you should take time to understand that. You should also look at this month versus last month, and this month, this year versus this month last year. So let's take a look at last year's numbers versus this year, and this year's numbers month to month, month over month. You're still going to find, if you speak with your brokerages and your brokers, you're going to find that we're still closing a lot of business. The market is still relatively solid, and that has a lot to do with the hangover from where we were versus where we are at this moment. So lots of time to do that sort of stuff. The last piece I wanted to talk to you about was your finances. And this is really important. If there's anything today that's the main takeaway, it's managing your money during challenging times. You were told by your broker, I'm assuming we were all told this at some point when we got our real estate license, that you needed to have a minimum of 6 months of reserve put away. So if you didn't sell a house or you didn't make any money for 6 months, you had enough money to sustain yourself. Your brokers all told you that. Told me that almost 40 years ago when I got into the business. And sometimes we get sloppy with stuff. We get caught up in our business. Maybe we've been in it 5 or 6 years and we haven't put a nest egg away. I'm going to really suggest that you work on, if you don't have one, you want to work on this going forward in the next real estate market, but you want to build up your your nest egg and your reserve. Now, the next thing I would say that you want to do is you want to take a look at your business plan. Now, you wrote a plan in 2019, the end of the year, and that plan was for 2020, but that plan was originally designed around a different real estate market. So you need to take your business plan out, and you're going to need to make some adjustments. I think it's fair to take a look at your expense side of your business plan. You should be well aware of your personal life expenses and your business expenses, and you should have an intimate understanding of what your, to put it just in a kind of a crass term, but you need to know what your monthly nut is. How much money do you need to break even every month? And then that'll give you an idea from a revenue side where you need to be. And you may need to make some adjustments on your costs. I would say that one, you should really have an understanding of how much it costs to run your life and your business. And in a good market, when we have a problem, meaning maybe we had an expense come up that we weren't counting on, we had some car repairs or we needed to buy a new computer, the easiest way to solve that situation in real estate is just go out and sell another house. But in a situation, in the market we're in, it may not be that easy just to go out and sell another house or make more prospecting calls or knock on more doors, because right now we have a barrier that's really outside of your control. So when you can't really put a lot of pressure on the revenue side, you really have to take a look at the expense side of your life and your business. In difficult situations or complicated markets, and I'm not going to use the word recession, because a recession needs to be 2 consecutive quarters in a downturn, and we haven't had that much time to come to that conclusion. So let's just call this a challenge or a difficult situation. What's really important is always cash. Cash is king. You've heard that. In fact, a business can stay in business for a couple of years and not be profitable, but a profitable business can't stay in business if it can't cash flow. So having cash available and having that nest egg is really important. Agents who manage their cash well will not just stay in business, but they will be in the business to be capitalized on the great real estate market that's coming. I would also recommend, if you've not investigated it, to go to the Apple Store or go to Google Play and download the Agent Success app. It's a perfect fit when you take the business plan and your numbers and you put it into the Agent Success app. The app is free. It's a technology we built to help you drive your production side of your business. So you can make some adjustments there. What's neat about it, it's like having your own digital coach. 74% of people who sign up to pay $1,000 a month for coaching do it. The primary reason is to be held accountable. Here's an example how technology can do that, and it's free. The next thing I have for you is you need to project your cash flow for the next few months. And this is a rhetorical question, but you need to go away and think about this. How much, first of all, how much money do you have in your bank account right now? How much money have you got coming in that on deals that are firm but not yet closed? So what have you got for revenue coming in? Do you have any savings, RSPs, that sort of stuff? You need to be thoughtful about that. Or do you have access to a credit line? That is sort of the nest egg side of the exercise. The next piece of it is you need to know how much money you've got going out every month. So in our business plan that a lot of our students would have, they would go through the expense side, both personally and professionally. And it's important that you become very familiar with your expenses. Let me give you an example. Most of the banks in Canada right now are allowing people to postpone their mortgage payments up to 6 months. So having cash on hand and having a reserve and not feeling like you're falling behind with your financial commitments is really important right now. So my first suggestion to you is reach out to the bank, find out if you can postpone your mortgage payments. It's not going to affect your credit. It's not going to affect how the bank views your file. All they're going to do is move that to the back end of the amortization period, and they're going to give you a 6-month holiday without a mortgage payment. So that wouldn't be a bad thing. Now, you're certainly welcome to, if this thing changes, jump back in, or even if you don't use that money and you set it aside, you could go back in and make one lump sum payment, because most mortgages will allow for a 10% more payment in reference to the balance of the mortgage when you took out the mortgage. I would look to see, in terms of your expenses, and I'm not sure about Ford Credit. I'm not sure about any of the leasing companies, but it wouldn't be unusual for you to reach out to one of them and find out if they have any programs where you can suspend your car payments for a few months if that's necessary. Now, what I also wanted to say is that you can take a look at any of your suppliers, people that you have business with now, and I honorably, and from a loyalty perspective and a business perspective, you've made commitments to other businesses. But that doesn't mean that you can't call them and have the conversation around, can we suspend this? Can we postpone it? I need you to take a look at even your Visa bill on a monthly basis, the last 2 months worth of statements. I'll bet you in some cases you have subscriptions to both Apple Music and Spotify. You probably let those subscriptions ride and you just haven't gone in and cleaned that stuff up. Well, maybe it's time to go in and get rid of some of the duplication. Or I'll bet you may even have a subscription for HBO, for instance, at home, and you're not watching HBO anymore. You're watching Prime or Hulu or something. So let's take a look at all of our expenses. What can we cut out? What don't we need? Maybe even your gym membership. You might even be paying for your gym membership right now. I don't know. And again, that wouldn't be unusual for them to consider suspending that. But cash is king. You need to have some liquidity. You need to manage your expenses. Since you can only be expected to generate so much revenue under these challenging circumstances, if you can't push hard on the revenue side, the one thing you can be very thoughtful is about your expenses. And then I would say to you, you can negotiate with any of your suppliers and to find out if there are other options available. Agents who adopt these strategies over the next few months are going to weather the storm really well. They're going to be well set up to come back into the market full steam ahead, and they will take advantage of the next real estate market that's coming. I don't know what this looks like, but I can tell you that about every 10 years, we have something that throws the whole sort of economy into a tailspin. And the tactical stuff I talked to you about today would be the tactical stuff we would normally have applied in any of these situations. Maintain your schedule, maintain your physical and emotional health, stay connected with people, find elegant ways to prospect and don't be pushy, and manage those expenses very carefully. The last suggestion I have for you is don't cut back everything. In times like this, people often take out the scissors to their expenses and they cut everything. Sometimes you can throw the baby out with the bathwater or cut too close to the bone. For example, I have a small company. I'm not a big company. But my staff, I'm keeping my staff on. We're using all of this time to clean up all of our technology. We're looking at working with our marketing people to create better marketing pieces. Right now, while we have a bit of a pause in our universe, and I don't feel it's something that has to be, we have to fit it into a busy travel schedule. So it gives us a chance to work with our marketing people. And if anything, right now, with everybody being at home, we're actually increasing our spending in our marketing on our social media platforms. So we're putting a lot more effort and energy into that side of it. So remember, there's things you can still do, and be careful not to cut it back too far. It will have an effect on the opportunities that are in front of you. Good balance. And as always, Tina and I are always here for you guys. If you want to talk to us, reach out. We've been doing lots of this stuff. And if any of the offices want us to do anything for you guys, we're more than happy to do that. And again, just reach out to our offices. Lee, I'm going to turn it back over to you for a little bit of Q&A, and then we will, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chris. If you have any questions, we would love to have Chris answer them. Please ask them in the Facebook comments over on the right-hand side of the screen. While we wait for a couple to come in, Chris, I had a question for you. You've given a lot of really great ideas for tactical things that you can be doing. I would also venture to call it homework. But at the beginning of your talk, you were talking a lot about your mental health and taking care of your emotional health. Do you have any suggestions on how people can balance those at this time?
I think that I'm going to go back and touch on something. I think that this whole sort of calamity, we get sucked into CNN and Fox or CTV, and we really get caught up in that. Again, a little bit in the morning to stay informed, but I would go to, I would look at even buying really good books right now and spending some quiet time and feel that you can afford yourself an hour. And there's some great stuff. Like, for instance, in challenging times, the book that in changing times, the book everyone has to have on their shelf is Who Moved My Cheese? And it really talks about and it's a simple little read, but it really talks about how do you deal with a changing world. Since it's so important right now to maintain our relationships. Another book worth reading is The Little Black Book of Relationships by Jeffrey Gitmer. And that book is all about, it's a salesperson's book on maintaining relationships. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill is always positive. They've done a new version of Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Anything you can get your hands on by Og Mandino will spiritually fill up your soul and give you strength. What I really am trying to say to you is take this time to read really good, positive stuff, and let's put lots of positive energy in. And I think that sort of thing really affects the way we feel when we're reading really, really positive stories and tactical stuff. And yes, Lee, you're right. I tend to be very tactical. I'm not a really sort of pie in the sky, woohoo, you can do it. I'm more like, here, let me give you 5 things, 3 secrets, 4 tips, and 5 keys to your success. Here, take out a pen. Let's do these things. For me,
realistical.
Yeah. For me, I have to have a list of stuff that I got to do. I'm not good with sort of esoterical, sort of airy-fairy, you know, that sort of stuff. I'm more like, give me the boots on the ground stuff. Tell me what I need to get done. Give me a timeline to get it done. And at least I feel like I've got my shirt sleeve rolled up and I'm really into it. And I would like you all to adopt that same position, that this isn't giving you permission to spend the day watching Netflix and eating ding dongs. It's really about, let's use this time, because I don't know what this market is. I don't know if it's a recession or not. I'm not an economist. But what I am going to say is, going into every difficult market, we usually are in a really great market. And when we come out of every difficult market, we go back into a really great market. So we go through cycles. Every 10 years, we have a boom. Every 10 years, we have a bust. And for agents who haven't been in this any length of time, this is not unusual. The virus is unusual, but the situation isn't. You're going to learn an awful lot about running a successful real estate practice. In fact, you'll learn more in a difficult market than you will in a good market. It doesn't take a lot of skill to sell a house in a really good real estate market, but it takes a lot of skill to navigate the challenges that are in front of you. To borrow a couple of cliches, when the market is really good, to quote John F. Kennedy, a rising tide raises all boats. So there are a lot of people who maybe weren't as good as they thought they were. And now that the world has changed, in the words of Warren Buffett, when the tide goes out, we get to see who's swimming naked. So from that perspective, let's see what you're made of. Are you going to use this time wisely? Are you going to bring discipline and focus and structure to your life? Will you use this time to muscle up, so that when we have a green light and we can go back at this thing full tilt, will you come out of the gate just really quick, and will you be ready and organized? I can't stress this enough. Do not waste this time. The other thing, if you're working with clients or technology, everybody is going to give you permission right now to drop the ball, because we're all learning a whole bunch of new stuff at the same time. So you have an opportunity right now, and people will be very forgiving when for instance, your Facebook Live doesn't come off the way it's supposed to, or we have conflicts with Zoom and all of that stuff, just like what we experienced. We're all going through this. We're all trying to figure it out, and we all are trying to learn new technology very quickly. Right now, we have permission to do this, and use that permission wisely, so that when this time has passed, you're going to be an expert at all of this stuff. More questions, Ms. Lee?
Well, we've had a bunch of requests for the list of books that you've got, but I did like what you said. And so if anyone has any other questions, people were asking about Slide Dial, how to learn Slide Dial, and Tina contributed to that too.
Okay, so Slide Dial very simply allows you to phone people without ringing their phone. So when the person goes to look at their smartphone an hour from now, it's like, oh my God, there's a voicemail. I didn't even hear the phone ring. So it manages to navigate around the ringer and just deposit your message into that voicemail box. And I think it's a nice way to do this. So it doesn't, you can do it. I always like to get things done before 8 a.m. in the morning. So if you could get in the habit of sending out 5 slide dials every morning, it's not interrupting anybody's day. You can do it anytime you want. Nobody would even know it was there until they check their voicemail. And if you're not sure where to find slide dial, my suggestion is Google it. And you'll find that I use that term slide dial, and there's a company called Slide Dial, but there's probably 10 other companies that have a very similar technology. This is your chance to kind of read through all of the write-ups and figure out which one and costs and what it looks like and how it works and what features they have, so that there might be another technology that you could apply. Oh, I lost your voice, Lee.
Great advice. Thank you very much. And I think that will wrap things up for today. Chris, you have given everyone a lot of really practical things that they can do, and the timing is perfect, because I think you're right. The beginning, it was a little bit of a novelty, and now reality is setting in for a lot of people with nothing changing in the next couple of weeks. So they really need to strategize and figure out how they can be grateful that they had this time and not regret that they didn't do more.
Perfect. That was the essence of what I wanted everybody to get. So thank you for that. As always, I'm blessed to have the opportunity to work with you guys. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chris. Have a great day and see you tomorrow, everybody.